In this episode, we are going to examine a mix in progress. Now, let me clear one thing, because of the time constraint of this program, it is not possible to demonstrate a whole film, because a whole film might be of at least 1.5 hour length long, and there will be lots of tracks, there will be lots of other sessions. So what I have done is that we have chosen a music mix. So it's basically a rock band who is playing live with drums and guitars, and there is a song also, there is a vocal. The reason for selecting a music session is that in a short span of time of say 5 minutes, 4 minutes, or however long the song is, we have to do all the things that we need to do for a whole feature film. So we have essentially all the elements of a feature film inside the mix of a single song. That is the reason for me to select the song. Now, as we must all be aware of that, I am using this software which allows me to open the song up in different tracks. So all the tracks are grouped together. The very basic thing of any good mix is a good recording. Now this has been recorded in a professional studio with the best equipment possible. So we have 10 different tracks for the drums. Then we have a bass guitar, we have electric guitars, and we have the main vocal plus the chorus vocals, the other vocals. So let us now go to the software and look what a session in progress looks like. Now in the top part you will see these are all the drums track. The blue ones here are all drums track. Now on the top we have a kick track, one track dedicated to the kick drum. Another next two tracks are the snare top and the snare bottom, and then we have the hi-hats, the first tom, the second tom, and the floor tom are 3 separate discrete tracks here. Then the ride is another discrete track over here. Plus there are 2 other stereo microphones, one for the overheads. 2 microphones are normally situated on top of the drum kit in a stereo pattern. Plus there are an additional pair of a stereo room microphone. Now these room microphones are actually used to capture the room resonance or the room reflections, which kind of adds up to a little bit of reverb effect to the drum and kind of makes it nice and round. Next, in this violet track we have the bass guitar recorded. It's only one track, it's not much complicated. And over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks we have all the guitars lined up. So we have on top clean guitar, then we have another clean guitar, then there is a drive guitar, and there is another drive guitar, there is a guitar harmonics, there is one guitar solo, and there is another guitar solo. So we have altogether 7 guitar tracks, and below that the main voice is in this dark green and the other voices are this light green. So we have all these tracks together. Now you will also notice that there are outputs assigned to different groups of instruments. For example, for the drums, for all the drums track I have assigned a drum bus which will take out all the added output of all the drums channel. So if we want to control the drums with one fader only, we can do it using the drum bus fader. If we want to process the drums overall, all the drums track all together, then we can keep our processings in this track and all the tracks will be equally affected. You will see on the left hand side of these tracks there are inserts, and just next to it are the sends. Now these inserts are used overall, you can use at a time. These are used to kind of put different plugins that we have been discussing to shape the sound or to modify the sound to our particular needs. And the sends here are used to put different kinds of effects, for example reverberation or delay. Mostly these 2 are the effects which are used in this session. So for the guitars also, you will see for all the 7 guitar tracks we have a guitar output. I have actually put all the inserts or all the plugins to modify the entire guitar sound and to make it like sound more compact. Plus there are 2 channels which are sending, one for the music reverb and the other one for delay. Similarly, for the vocal harmonies there is another track, all these vocal harmony track, except for the main vocal track which is going to the directly to the vocal master. These vocal harmonies are again grouped together in the harmony master track. And again, on the harmony master track, we have a few inputs, we have a few inserts in the form of different plugins, plus different kind of effects. Basically, there are three processors which are used in this mix. One is the vocal verb or the vocal reverb, the next one is the music reverb, and the third one is a delay. So these three are the main effects or the main three engines which are used. I'll show what are the engines that are particularly used. For the vocal reverb, we have this vocal reverb with a decay of 2.6 seconds, a pre-delay of 10 milliseconds, and 87% diffusion, and a high cut at 8 kHz. So beyond whatever is beyond high 8 kHz frequency will be cut off. For the musical reverb, we have another preset, another reverb with pre-delay of a little more pre-delay to have a little bit of slapback on the music portion of 26 milliseconds. And a reverb time of almost 4 seconds. We have a mix of 50% mix, so that not all the some of it also remains dry, some of the signal also remains dry and again gets mixed, so it kind of creates a totalness or totality of the mix. So these are all the buses which are directly going out of the mix through this mix bus. Again, you will see there are some processors which are used on the mix bus in order to do a little bit of mastering. They are mainly two compressions and a meter, and also this is another meter which is the RMS meter, or which gives us an average level of the entire mix. Let's actually go now to the tracks and listen to them one by one. Here I'll solo one of the tracks at each time, and we'll solo one of the groups of instruments, like for example what the drums sounds like. So if I just select the drums tracks, all the drums track, and solo them, you'll be able to hear the drums. This is the drum sound that has been achieved. Now this will be more or less the shape of the tracks till the final mix. Maybe there will be a few alterations, additions in terms of plugins or equalizer presets and so on. But this is what a final mix looks like. So you will see here in the kick drum there are two processors which are used. One is an equalizer which is actually drastically cutting down lows. I'd like a little bit more lows in my drums. The other processor used in the drums track is the compressor. This is a compressor which is doing a peak reduction at the same time, and it's actually a very nice quality compressor. There is also another compressor which is making the kick a little bit more tighter, so that we have a crunch on the kick, so that it becomes much more punchier. There is also another interesting plugin that has been used. It's the harmonic exciter called Renaissance Bass. So it's at 55 Hz frequency, it's adding a little bit of the lower harmonics to the kick drum. On the snare, we have again a equalizer which is equalizing a little bit, cutting down on the lows to get the kick out of it, and a little bit of the lower mid at around 500 Hz, and adding a little bit up at around 3-4 kHz. And again, a gentle slope, it's cutting down the high frequency. And also there is another compressor which is a snare compressor. It's a very gentle compression. It's a 3.2:1 compression, and the gain is around 4 decibels with a threshold of -18 decibels. For all the other tracks, also for the snare bottom, we have a similar an equalizer, also another preset of a compressor. For all the other channels, hi-hats, the tom, the 3 toms, the float tom, the first tom, the second tom, the ride, the overheads, and the room. Actually for the room, again there is it's cutting down a little bit of high and low frequency. There is an equalizer used, and there is a compressor with a threshold of -19 decibels which is used on the room. All the other tracks, there is only one processor which is used just to equalize it and largely keep it uncompressed. Now if I say in the output, if I just want to hear what's coming out of the drums, just doing these processings on the drums, this is what it sounds like. You'll also notice that there is a little bit of reverb and delay which are used mainly with the snare drum and the snare top and the bottom, both tracks. and there is a little bit of reverb also put out through the drums bus, and this is what it sounds like without any processing in on the drums bus itself. Now if I put on all the processors and just listen to the difference. So these all processors which are used on the drums bus, which are consecutively a harmonic exciter which is gaining a little bit of low and the high end of the frequency spectrum, a little bit of frequency equalizer by which a little bit of 5 kilohertz is cut, and a little bit of high frequency beyond 10 kilohertz is also cut, and a little bit of low is cut beyond 50 hertz, and a little dip on the 100 hertz. There is another compressor which is also compressing at the rate of 4.8:1 and at minus 30 dB, which is compressing quite a lot. And we have a stereo width expander which will kind of make the drums a little more wider for us to kind of shape it up. And finally there is a drum finalizer which gives us a lot of control over the final drum sound. So finally the drums output is taken care of. It's actually quite a heavy processing which is normally done on the drums in order to get a very punchy sound, and the drums together with the bass guitar will form the basic foundation for the mix. These are all the low frequency sounds, therefore controlling them is essential and making them tighter so that it gives the total bottom end of the mix all right and makes the bass for the song to be built up upon it. Now come to the bass guitar. This is what it sounds like. So normally when we do a mix, we normally listen to the bass guitar along with the drums track. So I'll just put on the drums track and see how it sounds like. So the processings that are done on the bass guitar are, there is an equalizer which is cutting down a little bit of low beyond 50 hertz, beyond actually 100 hertz. There is a dip in the mid section around 1 kilohertz. There is another dip at 5 kilohertz, and there is a frequency compensation beyond, there is a high frequency lift. And also there is a this is a very interesting processor. This basically simulates an amplifier. If you are playing your bass through this, you can control several parameters of the amplifier, like the pre-amplifier gain, the buzz, the punch, the crunch, the drive, and the frequency response, like a little bit of EQ of the low and the high frequency, and the overall level. This basically is called a SANSAMP. It's a very useful processor to process guitar sounds and also bass guitar sounds. Next section we are with the guitars. So all the yellow tracks are the guitars. Normally there will be two processors used simultaneously on the guitar. One is a equalizer to kind of give it a kind of flavor, and a SANSAMP make it sound like coming through a amplifier. So it gives a more realistic sound to the electric guitar. And also on the guitar output you will see there is a equalizer, of course. There is another SANSAMP and a compressor which is giving it a nice limiting kind of compressor, because the guitar sounds are quite heavy, so you sometimes need to control the dynamics of the final output of the guitar sound. There is also a stereo imager which is kind of giving the guitars a little wide kind of effect, so that you can separate one from the other, because there is always a group of guitars which are playing. So if I just the song begins like this, if I just solo the guitar tracks, this is what it sounds like. Here the guitar, here the second guitar comes in. And during the interlude it's like this. So you can see that there is a lot of different kind of guitars which are used simultaneously. So if I play all the drums, the guitar and the bass guitar together, this is what it sounds like. This is the song portion going on, and next we'll come to the music portion. Song portion, now we'll come to the music portion. Now, next we come to the most important part of the song, that is the vocals. You will see that there are two shades of green which you will find. One is the darker green, which is the main vocals, which sounds like this. Okay, this is what we heard is the final processed vocal. Now without the process, if I put all the processes off, this is actually what it sounded like during the recording. Actually, there is still a few processing which are going through the vocal master. This is what it actually sounded like during the mix, during the recording. লুকিয়ে রেখেছো তোমার গভীর ক্ষত সঙ্গী হারা ছন্ন ছাড়া মেঘ. Now with all the processors on, you can make a very distinct difference in the entire vocal. The entire quality of the vocal has changed. There is a lot more of effects which are used. লুকিয়ে রেখেছো তোমার গভীর ক্ষত সঙ্গী হারা ছন্ন ছাড়া মেঘ. So the processors that are used on the main vocal, first there is a compressor, then there is again a harmonic exciter giving a little high gain and also a little bit of low gain. There is another equalizer which is cutting down on a little bit of high frequency around 6-7 kilohertz and cutting down the lows beyond 125 hertz. There is another vocal processor. It's actually a vocal compressor, nice vocal compressor called the Renesas Vox, compressing at minus 13.9 decibel threshold. And also finally a de-esser. Now these de-essers are also very interesting tools. They kind of avoids the sibilance in the without the sibilance controller. Sometimes the vocal can become too bright and unlikable for the taste of the viewer. So we need to put all these processings, and also you'll see that through the auxiliary bus there are two types of outputs which are going to two processors. One is the vocal reverb, this one, and the delay. For the rest of the vocals, you will see that there is hardly any processing done on the tracks. There is no processing done on the tracks, but they are panned in a certain manner and coming out through the harmony master, where we have again another equalizer cutting down a little bit of low mid and low frequency simultaneously, and also cutting down a little bit of high frequency in order to make it a little more background to the main vocals, and also a widener which is widening, a stereo widener which is widening up the vocals a little bit. If we listen only to the harmony vocals, this is what it sounds like. And along with the main voice, it sounds like this, only the vocal parts. Oh Meg, oh Meg, oh Meg. You will see also on the final mix output or the mix bus, we have a few processors. One is a very nice compressor called the SSL compressor. We have another compressor which is kind of acting more like a limiter, and there is it's like to check out the output. So these are also kind of giving a little bit of shape to the entire song. They are actually coming through all these processes, all the tracks together, and all the buses and all the effects are coming through these and making the final impact. So let's listen to the song now.
যখন আমার মতো ঠান্ডা কাছে কান্নারা লেগে ও মেঘ 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 ও মেঘ.
Now we have another session which is not a music session, but it's a radio drama. Now the reason for selecting such a session is that there are different kinds of tracks which we can see: the dialogue track, the effects track, and also the music track. So if we look at the session, we will have 4 dialogue tracks coming out of the vocal out section, and also there are 4 special effects ambience tracks, ambience and special effects tracks, plus 2 music tracks marked in red. So I'll just play from this portion which is like in between somewhere in the play. Just listen to it.
आप मुझे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं क्या?
रंजन बाबू ने अंग्रेजी में ही सवाल किया। मन ही मन सोचने लगे कि पुराने जमाने वाले फर्स्ट क्लास के साथ ऐसे अंग्रेज हमसफर एकदम फिट बैठता है।
You'll see that there are 2 voices used over here. One is Ranjan's voice.
आप मुझे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं क्या?
And the main voice, which is the voice of the narrator. You'll see that there is a
रंजन बाबू ने अंग्रेजी में ही सवाल किया।
You'll see there is a different distinct tone in the quality of the voice of the 2. So wherever there is a narration happening, what has been done is that there is a little bit of low frequency lift in the voice of the narrator, and also you'll see that there is a slightly more reverb to the voice than the other characters, like for example this one, it's much lesser. So in order to distinguish the story from the narrator, this treatment is done. And also on the vocal output track, there is a equalizer which is again cutting down the lowest of the frequencies, but then again hiking up a little bit of low frequency for the voice and cutting down a little bit of high frequency around 6K, but adding a little beyond 10K. There is a compressor. This is a leveler basically. This is a processor vocal rider which takes care of the vocal level and keeps it constant at one level. There is also another compressor which is a vocal compressor acting at minus 12 decibel threshold, and there is a limiter also which is the output level is set at minus 1.5 decibels. And there is also again another deesser which is cutting down all the sibilance of the voice and making it more round. For the ambiences, you will see that there are many tracks. Mostly the ambience is directly going to the output bus, so there is no as such effect which is put to the ambience. This is because in a session like this there is not too much ambience or too much effects. Whatever effect and ambience is being used is selected very carefully and put so that the tonality and the sound quality is matched with the rest of the session. You will also see that for the music there are only 2 tracks, and mostly there is only one music running at a time. So also for the music there is not, because we are using finished mixes of music tracks, there is not much need of doing any much processing except for the level control. You will see that the entire session does also have a reverb, which is a reverb with a little bit of pre-delay and 1.7 second reverb time. Because this is a radio drama, we need to make it much more soothing experience for the audience to listen. There is no guidance as such of the videos, therefore the sound needs to be a little more smoother than it should be for a film, for example. So all these processes are done, and in the final output there are 2 compressors. One is a single compressor, SSL compressor, which is compressing at a very small ratio of 4:1, and the threshold is set at minus 4.1. And there is another multi-band compressor. Now this is a very fantastic compressor which gives a very tight output of the entire level. There is a preset that we are trying to use. It's called high resolution CD master. The entire mix is going through these processors, and you can see another track which is there for the mix. So if we want to simultaneously mix it down, we can directly do it by recording this track. So all the output of all the tracks are coming out of the mix output track and coming into this particular physical track. So if I just start recording from here, let's see what happens.
ना इतनी गरम मिजाजी दिखाने की भला क्या जरूरत है?
आप मुझे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं क्या?
रंजन बाबू ने अंग्रेजी में ही सवाल किया। मन ही मन सोचने लगे कि पुराने जमाने वाले फर्स्ट क्लास के साथ ऐसे अंग्रेज हमसफर एकदम फिट बैठता है। यश, साहिब ने कहा, गेट आउट एंड लीव मी अलोन। गार्ड के विसल बजाते ही ट्रेन की सीटी सुनाई दी और एक झटके के साथ बॉम्बे मेल दोबारा पटरी पर चलने लगी।
So if we take this file out anywhere, we can just play it. So this generates the mixed file, last part.
हम दोनों ही इसमें सफर कर सकते हैं, इसमें नुकसान क्या है?
गार्ड के विसल बजाते ही ट्रेन की सीटी सुनाई दी और
So normally after the mix will be done, you need to export the file from the session to wherever you want to keep it. During the export, it is necessary to remember what kind of file is wanted by the final mastering studio. If it's a stereo file, then it's fine, then it can have a specified amount of sampling rate and a bit depth. Normally for a radio station, it is 44.1 kilohertz sampling rate and 16-bit depth. So after the sessions are mixed down and put into one track, they are exported to be mastered down. Now this is another important thing that needs to be kept in mind, because mastering ensures that a material plays equally well in any place. Say for example, if we are mixing for a film, we might need to play the film for television as well, and also for maybe YouTube, and you can also watch it on a laptop itself. So for that case, you need to master the final sound, and you cannot keep it in the in its original 5.1 format. In that case, we must remember that there is a process of mastering. Normally the two processes which are most widely used again for mastering also are the equalization and the compression, multi-band dynamic compression. Using these two, any file, the mastering engineer will ensure that the mixed file will become a mastered audio and will be sent to its particular place where it is targeted. For example, for a audio CD, there will be an album release. For YouTube, there will be a mono mix along with the video. For the television, there might be a stereo mix along with the video, and for the final print of the film, it might be a 5.1 DCP or digital for the final projection to be sent to the cinema halls.